The old man's wheels scraped against the cracked sidewalk like a whisper from a forgotten battlefield, each turn echoing the ghosts of explosions long silenced. In the fading light of an autumn afternoon, his eyes sharp as shrapnel locked onto the boy, no more than 12, huddled behind a makeshift cart blooming with roses and daisies that seemed too vibrant for this gray city corner. "Son," the veteran rasped, his voice cracking like dry earth under boots. "I've got no money, but I've got stories that could fill oceans. Would you trade those flowers for one?" The boy, Tommy, blinked in surprise, his small hands clutching a bouquet of wilting lilies as if they were lifelines. He wasn't used to adults like this. Most hurried past, tossing coins without a glance, their faces buried in phones or worries. But this man, with his faded army jacket pinned with medals that glinted like distant stars, held a gaze that pulled Tommy in, like a current dragging him toward uncharted waters. "Stories," Tommy echoed, curiosity flickering in his wide brown eyes. "What kind of stories, mister?" The veteran, whose name was Elias Hawthorne, leaned forward in his wheelchair, the leather creaking under his frail frame. He'd been coming to this corner every day for weeks, not for the flowers, but for the boy. Something about Tommy's innocent hustle reminded him of his own youth, before the war stole his legs and half his soul. "The kind that make you laugh, cry, and question everything," Elias replied, his wrinkled hands trembling as he reached into his pocket. Not for money, but for a faded photograph, yellowed at the edges, showing a young soldier grinning beside a field of wildflowers in some foreign land. "Start with this one. Back in '68, in the jungles of Vietnam." As Elias began to weave his tale, the bustling street around them faded into a haze. Tommy sat on the curb, flowers forgotten in his lap, listening to how Elias had once been a farm boy from Iowa, drafted at 18, shipped off to a hell where the air smelled of gunpowder and fear. He spoke of buddies lost in ambushes, of nights under starry skies praying for dawn, and of a single act of kindness, a local girl who traded him a handful of orchids for a chocolate bar, her smile cutting through the chaos like sunlight. "Those flowers saved me that day," Elias said, his voice thick with emotion. "Reminded me there was beauty left in the world." Tommy nodded, enthralled, but a pang of doubt crept in. His own life was no fairy tale. Orphaned young, living with a stern aunt who barely scraped by, selling flowers to help pay the rent. Stories were nice, but they didn't fill bellies or warm cold nights. Yet, as Elias described dodging bullets while clutching that girl's orchids, Tommy felt a spark of connection to something bigger than his daily grind. "Did you ever see her again?" he asked, handing Elias a red rose without thinking. Elias took the flower, twirling it between gnarled fingers. "No, son. War doesn't let you keep promises like that. But I kept her memory, like these petals, fragile, but enduring." He paused, eyes misting over, then continued into the heart of his story. The day his platoon was hit by a mine, the blast that took his legs and left him screaming in the mud. Medevaced out, he woke in a hospital bed, staring at white walls, wondering if life was worth the pain. "That's when the real battle began," he confessed. "Not against the enemy, but against myself." The afternoon wore on, shadows lengthening as passers-by glanced curiously at the unlikely pair. Tommy, usually quick to hawk his wares, forgot about sales entirely. Elias's words painted vivid pictures. Rehabilitation wards filled with broken men, some who gave up, others who clawed back to life. He told of his return home, the parades that felt hollow, the stares that followed his wheelchair like accusations. "People see the chair, not the man," Elias said bitterly. "But you," Kitty looking right at me. Tommy shifted uncomfortably, thinking of his aunt's warnings about strangers. But Elias wasn't a stranger anymore. He was a portal to worlds Tommy had only read about in tattered library books. "My dad was in the army too," Tommy admitted softly. "He didn't come back from Afghanistan. Aunt says he was a hero, but I just wish he was here." Elias's face softened, a tear tracing his cheek. "Heroes are just folks who keep going, son. Like you out here every day." He handed back the photograph, but Tommy refused, insisting Elias keep it with the rose. As the sun dipped lower, Elias delved deeper, his struggles with PTSD, nights haunted by screams, until he found solace in a veterans group. There, he learned to share stories, turning pain into purpose. By now, Tommy's cart was half empty, given away in trades for snippets of Elias's life. A young couple bought tulips, smiling at the duo. An old lady took carnations, nodding knowingly. Elias chuckled. See? Stories sell better than flowers sometimes. But beneath the levity, a deeper current ran. Elias hadn't come here by chance. He'd seen Tommy's ad in the local paper, a kid selling blooms to fund his dream of art school. Elias had his own dream, to pass on wisdom before time ran out. As dusk settled, Elias revealed a small twist in his tale. That girl in Vietnam? She wasn't just a stranger. Turns out, years later, I got a letter her daughter, now in America, thanking me for the chocolate that reminded her mom of hope. Tommy's eyes widened. Whoa, really? Elias nodded, the emotion raw. It was a bridge between past and present, showing how one act rippled through time. But the day wasn't over. Tommy glanced at his watch. His aunt would worry soon. One more story, he pleaded. Elias obliged, recounting his first post-war job, pushing through discrimination, finding love with a nurse who saw beyond the chair. Their marriage, their child now grown, distant. Life's full of trades, kid. You give a piece of yourself, get something back. Tommy absorbed it all, feeling a warmth bloom in his chest, like the flowers he sold. For the first time, he didn't feel alone in his struggles. Elias, too, felt lighter, as if sharing unburdened his soul. As stars twinkled above, Tommy packed up, but not before pressing a bouquet into Elias's hands. For your stories, he said. Come back tomorrow? Elias smiled. Wouldn't miss it. But deep down, he knew tomorrow held more than tales. It held healing for them both. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, the city awakening with honks and chatter that drowned out the night's quiet reflections. Tommy arrived at his corner early, cart laden with fresh blooms from the market, his mind buzzing with Elias's words like bees in a garden. He scanned the sidewalk eagerly, but as minutes ticked by, doubt crept in. Had it all been a dream? A fleeting connection severed by reality? Elias wheeled up just as Tommy's hope waned, his chair navigating the crowd with practiced ease. Miss me already? He teased, but his eyes held a shadow, darker than yesterday's tales. Tommy beamed, offering a sunflower. Trade for another story? Elias accepted, inhaling its scent. Deal. But today's different. Have you got a question for you? As they settled, Elias dove into uncharted territory. His post-war life in detail, the therapy sessions where he learned to forgive himself for surviving when others didn't. He spoke of flashbacks that gripped him like vines, pulling him back to jungles where friends fell. One night, he confessed, voice trembling. I almost ended it. Held a pistol, stared at those metals worthless tin. But then I thought of that girl's orchids, how beauty persists. Tommy listened, heart aching. He'd had his own dark nights, crying over his dad's photo, wondering why life took so much. I get it, he murmured. Sometimes I sell flowers just to forget. Elias nodded, seeing the boy's hidden pain. That's why we trade. Santo, remember, we're not alone. The morning crowd swelled, and Tommy made sales, but his focus stayed on Elias. A twist emerged when a woman approached mid-middle-aged, with kind eyes and a locket around her neck. Dad? She said, voice soft. Elias froze. Lila, what are you doing here? Tommy's jaw dropped. This was Elias's daughter, the one he'd mentioned briefly, estranged after years of his silence. Lila explained she'd seen them yesterday, drawn by curiosity. I followed you home, Dad. Heard your stories through the window. Elias's face crumpled, a mix of joy and regret. I pushed you away, thinking my burdens were mine alone. Lila knelt, hugging him. No more. Let's trade forgiveness for time lost. Tommy watched, tears welling. This unexpected reunion shifted everything. Elias's tales weren't just history. They were keys unlocking present bonds. Lila bought flowers, joining their circle, sharing her own stories, growing up with a distant father, forging her path as a teacher. You taught me resilience, even from afar, she said. Elias, emboldened, continued his Vietnam saga, the evacuation, the long flight home, landing in a country that spat on returning soldiers. Protests, hate felt like another war. He described rebuilding, joining a support group, volunteering at shelters, turning pain into advocacy. Traded my silence for voices, he said. Tommy, inspired, opened up more. his art dreams, sketching flowers in notebooks, but fearing poverty would crush them. Lila smiled. Art heals, like Dad's stories. Show us. Tommy pulled out a drawing of veteran with flowers and Elias gasped. That's me. The emotions surged, kitschy in its intensity. As noon approached, they shared lunch from a nearby vendor, laughter mingling with tears. Elias revealed another layer. His secret savings, meant for a cause. Been saving for kids like you. Tomato trade for futures. But Lila interjected. First, trade for family time. Come home with me. The afternoon deepened their bond. Elias recounted lighter moments. Pranks in the barracks, letters from home that kept hope alive. Tommy sketched as he listened, capturing Elias's essence. Lila added perspectives, how her mom's strength held them together. You weren't there, but your spirit was. A small crowd gathered, drawn by the trio's energy. One man, a fellow vet, shared his story briefly, creating a ripple of connection. Tommy sold out his cart, not from pity, but from the warmth radiating from their group. As evening neared, Elias felt a profound shift, his isolation cracking like old armor. Tommy, too, saw possibilities. Maybe art school wasn't a dream, but a trade for hard work. Lila promised visits, bridging gaps. But Elias had one more revelation. The photographs girl? Her daughter was Lila's pen pal in school, unknowingly linking fates. Life's full of surprises, he said, voice choked. Tommy hugged them both. Tomorrow. Elias nodded. Always. With the sun climbing higher on the third day, Tommy's corner transformed into a haven, his cart now adorned with sketches inspired by Elias's tales. Word had spread, neighbors whispered about the old vet and the flower boy, their stories drawing curious souls like moths to flame. But today, Elias arrived with a heaviness, his wheelchair seeming slower, as if carrying unseen weights. Morning, family. He greeted Tommy and Lila, who joined again. Tommy handed him a violet. Trade. Elias sighed. Today, it's a hard one about loss that never heals. He launched into the core of his pain. The buddy he lost, Sergeant Ramirez, who died shielding him from that mine. His last words, tell my kid I love him. I never did count face it. Tommy's heart twisted, thinking of his own dad. Lila squeezed Elias's hand. You can now, Dad. But the twist came abruptly. A man in his 40s approached, hesitant. Excuse me, are you Elias Hawthorne? My father was Ramirez. Tommy gasped. This was no coincidence. Lila had tracked him down online, inviting him for closure. The man, Carlos, sat with them, eyes glistening. Dad spoke of you in letters, his best friend. Elias broke down, recounting the blast in vivid detail. The earth erupting, Ramirez's sacrifice, the guilt that followed like a shadow. I should have died, Elias whispered. Carlos shook his head. You live for us both. Trade that guilt for gratitude. The emotion peaked, kitschy waves crashing. Tommy, silent witness, felt the human value. Forgiveness bridging generations. Carlos shared photos, Ramirez young and vibrant, mirroring Elias's old snapshot. He loved flowers too, Carlos said. Planted them before deploying. As stories flowed, the group expanded. Tommy sold blooms, each purchase laced with tales. Elias delved into reintegration, job hunts rejecting the disabled, society's blind eye to veterans' plights. Traded pride for survival, he said bitterly. But Carlos added hope, his work in vet support, inspired by his dad's legacy. Lila facilitated, her teacher instincts shining. These stories teach empathy. Tommy nodded, sketching the Senius circle of healing. The afternoon brought more revelations. Elias's hidden poetry, written in rehab, verses of war and peace. He recited one, voice steady. In fields of fire, we sowed our youth. Harvested scars, sought elusive truth. Yet in a boy's bloom, an old man's trade. We find the light that never fades. Tears flowed freely. Tommy confessed his fears, failing his aunt, abandoning dreams. Carlos offered advice. Trade doubt for action, apply for scholarships. Inspired, Tommy vowed to try. The day waned with shared memories. Elias spoke of his wife, gone too soon from cancer, her love the anchor through storms. She traded her health for my sanity. Lila teared up, remembering her mom. We're all trading pieces, building holes. A storm brewed, rain pattering, but they huddled under an awning, unbreakable. Elias felt redemption Ramirez's son absolving him. Tommy saw family in strangers. As lightning flashed, symbolizing twists of fate, they parted with hugs. Tomorrow, the end of my tale, Elias promised. Tommy smiled. Or the beginning. On the fourth day, the corner buzzed with anticipation, Tommy's cart overflowing as locals donated flowers in support. Elias arrived last, flanked by Lila and Carlos, his face radiant despite fatigue. Final trade, he announced. My whole story for your futures. He wrapped up Vietnam. The homecoming parade turned protest, eggs thrown, names called. Traded heroism for scorn. But resilience one built a life, advocated for vets, mentored youth. Now trading it all to you. The climax built. Elias revealed a fund he'd saved. Not just stories, but money from pensions and donations. For Tommy's art school, Carlos's programs, Lila's dreams. Gasps echoed. Tommy protested. But your stories? Elias smiled. They're yours now, trade them forward. Emotions surged, human values crystallizing. Compassion, legacy, connection. A crowd formed, applauding as Elias handed envelope scholarships, grants. Tommy hugged him fiercely. You're the hero. But a final twist. Elias's health faltered. He'd been ill. This corner his last stand. Doctors say not long, he confessed. Panic rose, but he calmed them. Trade fear for memories built something eternal. They spent the day celebrating, stories retold, flowers distributed freely. Elias recited more poetry, voice weak but spirit strong. Lila sang a lullaby from childhood. Carlos shared Ramirez's letters. Tommy unveiled a mural sketch Elias central, surrounded by blooms and faces. As sunset painted the sky, Elias wheeled away, but not before whispering to Tommy. Keep trading kindness, son. It's the only currency that matters. Weeks later, Tommy thrived at art school, his pieces inspired by Elias, who passed peacefully, legacy blooming. Lila and Carlos continued his work, the corner now a memorial garden. In every petal, every tale, the veteran spirit lived on, proof that one trade could change worlds.